Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages. This is Tim May along with
Bill Rabinowitz.
We're at the site here in Indianapolis, Bill, of the Big Ten Championship game on Saturday night between Ohio State and Wisconsin. We just heard from both head coaches, Paul Chryst of Wisconsin and Urban Meyer of Ohio State. Of course, the first of many questions Urban Meyer got about JT Barrett were about the surgery that he had, the minor surgery, for want of another word, he had on Sunday to relieve whatever the problem was in his right knee, and then he followed up with the fact that he's maybe the toughest guy, one of the toughest guys he's ever coached. He expects him to play on Saturday night. That hasn't changed since he iterated that the other day. Bottom line is, what's your take on the whole situation?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I asked him kind of toward the end. Most of the questions have been asked, but I said, okay, what's your level of confidence that he will play? I know he's been medically clear, but that he'll be able to play effectively. And he kind of hedged. He couldn't say that. And that's the bottom line, is you don't know. He won't know until he gets out there tomorrow night. Yeah, there's a chance he could go through pregame and say, I can't do it. Or that they look at him and say, he can't do it. And obviously they would feel reasonably good about Dwayne Haskins being able to fill in, considering how well he played against Michigan. So, yes, I think the expectation is that JT will play, but I think we just have to wait till tomorrow. Yeah,
I think he is going to play. I mean, from what I heard, he looked good through the week. I mean, his progress, that's what Urban Meyer touched on, was that JT has been getting just every part of rehab that you can get, spending 15 hours a day in some respects of bringing it along. And of course, with that kind of situation they endure, we don't still know exactly what the procedure was, whether it was a little slice and a pull out, or whether there was a full-blown arthroscopic surgery. I guess we'll maybe find that out later. As Urban Meyer said, that's for JT to tell us, not for him to tell us.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, in some respects, he could be better off than he was a week ago because he doesn't have that problem anymore.
Maybe, but it is still surgery. I know with arthroscopic, it's not. If it were major, arthroscopic surgery, he wouldn't be playing. We know that. It's got to be a little snip job. He had said it's a meniscus. JT had said that. So, it was a minor procedure, but I don't care how minor a surgical procedure is. 6 days afterward is asking a lot for somebody to play.
Yeah, I was under the impression from what I was hearing that the big question is the wound that you have to make to get the little piece of cartilage out, meniscus cartilage out, is what has to heal.
Right.
Otherwise, he's pretty much good to go. And like I said, he looked pretty good walking around on Tuesday. He threw the ball some on Wednesday at practice, and then on Thursday, as Urban Meyer said, he went through the practice. I'm sure he didn't take minimal snaps,
right.
But he's still running on it and or moving around on it. So, and like Urban Meyer also pointed out, it's still 24 hours or more until that final decision has to be made. But I think they feel encouraged by what they've seen. With that said, as I asked him, Dwayne Haskins Jr. has gotten more reps than ever now.
Sure.
He's very encouraged by the progress he has made since that moment he fumbled the ball in the driving rainstorm and the windstorm against Illinois, when Urban Meyer said, hey, first team get back in there,
right.
even though they had already cut their tape.
Right.
To now, going through that Michigan game last week when he entered with Ohio State down by 6 points and brought them back, led them to victory. Obviously, there is a high level of confidence in this young man.
And that's much different than they had it with Cardale Jones 3 years ago. Cardale had really not done anything in any kind of pressure situation. He played in some mop-up roles, but that was it. He came into this game. Now, there was a quiet confidence because I'd seen him in practice, but he'd never done it in a game. And I think there's definitely more confidence in Dwayne. First of all, Cardale, for all of his gifts, had to overcome a reputation of being a knucklehead. And so, there was always that question, which Cardale was going to show up, and the good Cardale showed up. Dwayne Haskins is not considered to be anything like that. He's a solid guy. There's no issue. But there was a maturity curve, and he's had to accelerate that. And it is a little different when you don't have to think that you're playing. You go in there, you can just react like you did against Michigan. If he knows more than we do, and maybe he's thinking he's going to play, that's a different mindset that he's got to go into the game with.
True, and like I just pointed out, he's got in his back pocket now incredible experience under ridiculous circumstances, and not just that, but as I've written about this week, and Urban Meyer alluded to it earlier today, he's got the confidence of his fellow teammates. And obviously the coaching
That's
staff.
Huge.
But that's huge when people believe in a man. And we all saw what happened when Cardale threw that ball up for grabs to Devin Smith. He comes down with it in this very same building, Lucas Oil Stadium, in 2014. It was like a sea change with the team, in my opinion. And of course, they went on to have one of the great wins in Ohio State history, 59-0 that night against Wisconsin, impressing all of the college football playoff voters, who then put them into the field, and they went on to win the very first college football playoff championship. You know, the $64,000 question here actually is probably about $64 million question. And just in a real quick basis, what do you think has to happen this weekend for Ohio State to get into the college football playoff? They sit number 8 in the rankings right now. They're playing the number 4 team. From your vantage point, what has to happen?
Obviously, they have to win. I think they have to win pretty convincingly. I mean, certainly not 59-0. But if it's a 1-point win, I don't think that gets them in. I think they have to kind of control the play, make people think, yeah, this is a team that, because of its conference championship, deserves to get the nod over Alabama. That's probably what we're looking at. I mean, there are other factors. If Oklahoma loses to TCU, that complicates things. I think if Clemson loses to Miami, which I don't expect, but that would complicate things. But if it comes down to Alabama and Ohio State, Alabama has the eye test. Ohio State has to kind of prove that they can counter that to some degree. I still think that there's a bias toward Alabama because they're Alabama. But if you look at their resume, it's not, just on paper, the wins, it's not all that impressive. Ohio State would have better wins. Of course, they have by far the worst loss.
Alabama had the eye test until the last 3 games of its season, in my opinion, when they struggled to beat Mississippi State, which is a mediocre team in the SEC. Played always tough Mercer, an FCS school, and then fell and was basically beaten fairly soundly by their arch rival Auburn. I thought that changed the whole narrative on Alabama and the eye test, in my opinion. The bottom line is, like I keep reiterating, if Ohio State wins this game, it will have 11 FBS wins. Alabama will have 10. And on top of that, Alabama will have lost its last game. Now, that loss might end up being to the Southeastern Conference champion when it's all said and done, which could be Auburn. But still, it's going to, you can sense that in that committee meeting room, somebody's going to go with, yeah, but what about that 31-point loss at Iowa? How do you explain that? And, of course, Gene Smith won't be able to explain it because he won't be in the room when that discussion is being had. Even though he is on the committee, he's obliged to leave the room. The way I explain it is that was almost a month and a half ago. This is or at least 5 weeks ago. And that's how you explain it. Things happen.
That's just one of these games that's always going to be a mystery.
But also, as Jackie Gleason used to explain, homina, homina, homina.
What am I supposed to say?
Exactly.
Look, Iowa was not a bad team. They almost beat Penn State, and they played great that day. And it was 17-all, and then things snowballed out of control for Ohio State. So it wasn't like it was 31-0 at half. I mean, they played badly. Iowa played great. They lost by a margin that they never should have lost to. It is hard to overlook that.
Yeah.
But they do have things in their favor. They do have Penn State, Michigan, and then they would obviously have Wisconsin, the only undefeated team among the Power 5 conferences. If they look good against Wisconsin, and what Kirby Hocutt said, the CFP head on Tuesday, that conference championships matter. And if it's if it's comparable, that should push Ohio State over the top. Ohio State's got to get to the point where the Alabama eye test, or at least the Alabama reputation, doesn't win out.
Yeah, like I said, if you put Washington State or if you put California over Alabama's resume and submit it, they'd laugh and go, no, it's not good because you lost your last game and look who you played. And, maybe Fresno State might end up. It's really bizarre that nobody in the SEC can help them, but Fresno State might be able to help them get another quality win. We'll see where that goes. But, I'm going to stand by what I said. I think Ohio State should get in. Yeah, you can't do anything about that loss to Iowa. That's said and done. Ohio State, if it wins, it will have finished extremely strong. It will have beaten your number 4 team, according to the committee. And Alabama will be sitting there in what they call T-Town just watching. And I think that should speak volumes.
I mean, two years ago, Ohio State clearly had one of the 4 best teams in the country. They lost late to Michigan State, very similar to what happened with Alabama and Auburn.
Exactly.
And Ohio State didn't get in, and I think most Ohio State fans thought deservedly they did not get in. That, okay, we had our chance, we blew it. It doesn't matter whether we're one of the 4 best teams we didn't do it, didn't answer the bell when it needed to be answered, and we're out. And I think Alabama's in a very similar situation.
All right, real quickly, about this game in particular. Of course, Ohio State doesn't win this game. Everything we just talked about there for 3 minutes is moot. That's M-O-O-T.
Not mute. He's never mute.
And if you save this video, you can mute it. So mute the moot part. But bottom line is, I picked Ohio State 31-20 in our Game Day Plus section.
We don't consult on these things.
No, we don't. I picked them 31-20 because I thought that was based on the way last week's game ended at Michigan. Those were good numbers.
And I picked 31-21. Really going at.
So they don't block an extra point this time.
I think they're going to score a touchdown, and
Yeah.
We do not consult each other on these picks. I had no idea. I would have picked something different if I had known.
It's funny because I asked Paul Christ. He alluded to the fact that this is a totally different test for his defense against Ohio State. And so I asked him to expound on what he means by totally different. And he goes, well, because we haven't played them. And, I thought he was going to say, well, their passing offense clearly has come on. And they've got J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber. And they're running the ball well. But that's not what he said.
No.
But that is, by the way, he did hit on that without saying it. This is the best offense that Wisconsin has faced this year. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the best defense Ohio State has gone against.
Michigan's was pretty good. I mean, they're different. I mean, it's a different defense, but Wisconsin's not tricky. They're not fancy. They play pretty basic stuff, but they play it very well.
Yeah.
And it just may come down to are Ohio State's players just more talented? Can what Ohio State does athletically just be too much for what Wisconsin's able to stop?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's one of the questions.
Yeah, I mean, this Wisconsin defense doesn't have what you call a Maurice Hurst or a Rashawn Gary, is what you're alluding to, but they have guys that play their system extremely well, and they fill the gaps. I mean, it's a sight to behold when they kind of get you going downhill. And so, just like you folks, man, we're going to be over here. We're going to be watching this game tomorrow night with a lot of interest, and boy, what follows after that is Paul Christ kept reiterating today when he was trying to press into, Coach, you're right there, you're that close to being in the college football playoff. His point was, play where you are. I mean, take care of business, and then business will take care of you. So we'll be back to discuss that maybe late Sunday night or late Saturday night, early Sunday for sure. We'll be back to discuss what happens on Sunday with Ohio State and its bowl situation, whether or not it is going to the college football playoff or to another high-level bowl. I guess we'll find out about noon or 1 o'clock on Sunday. But until then, this is Tim May.
And Bill Rabinowitz. Thanks for watching.